Hello, everybody. Welcome to the All Day Football Show. I'm your host, Jackson Kellogg. Today, we're getting into Week 14 of my NFL Power Rankings. Hope you all enjoy. If you do, be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you aren't already. Getting right into the action. Number 32. If you are new here, the Jets have been here for the entire season, and they were 5 seconds away of being able to move up from this spot. The Jets, on the last play of the game, there were 5 seconds left afterward, but the Raiders, Greg Williams calls an all-out blitz on the Jets' defensive side. Derek Carr recognizes it, chucks the ball up in the air to a one-on-one covered Henry Ruggs on undrafted rookie Lamar Jackson. Goes, gets the catch, runs into the end zone for the touchdown. End of game. Jets continue their losing streak, which now puts them at 0-12 on the season. Jets were 5 seconds away from being able to pull off their first win of the season, and now their season is just about over. Well, their playoff hopes are over, but now their hopes of going to get Trevor Lawrence begin, as that game was pretty much their last chance to get a win, and they could not pull it off, so I would not expect the Jets to win any more games going forward. At number 31, the Jacksonville Jaguars. They were close to pulling off the upset victory over the Vikings, taking them to overtime, but Kirk Cousins was able to overcome his first half slump, and the Jaguars lose in overtime. Mike Glennon almost carried this team to a victory. Gardner Minshew has been all but abandoned. So has Jake Luton. This is Mike Glennon's team for pretty much the rest of the year. Minshew said, I forget what news outlet it was, but he was like, I've been begging them to let me play, and they haven't let him play at all, so meaning they've moved in a different direction. Minshew mania is over, and the Jaguars will most likely be taking Justin Fields in the draft this year. At 30, the Cincinnati Bengals. The Bengals kept it close to start against the Dolphins, but then the Dolphins pulled away. The only thing that kept them in this game was the fact that the Dolphins couldn't capitalize and score touchdowns. But no matter, the Bengals still lost. They could not overcome the idea that, Joe Burrow carried this team, wins, losses, and even the tie. Joe Burrow carried this team on his back, and they look terrible without him there. This just shows the talent level that Joe Burrow has, and Joe Burrow is the future of this franchise, but they're going to have to make a ton of decisions if they're going to want to support their guy of the future. At 29, the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles are just a laughing stock this year. There's not really any other way to put it. They end up benching Carson Wentz against the Packers and throw Jalen Hurts in there. Jalen Hurts didn't play terrible, but he has been named the starter for this week. Carson Wentz, he's had a rough season so far. We'll see what happens in the offseason this year, because if the Eagles were to get rid of him this season, they're going to have to pay him $60 million this year, because all of his bonuses would rush up, and he would get to be very expensive very quickly. And that's not a move the Eagles want to make right now, as they are already around $80 million under the cap, or over the cap, for next season. So the Eagles are going to have a lot of turnover on this team next year. A lot of veteran players are going to lose their jobs. Expect guys like Zach Ertz. Who else is getting paid money there? Fletcher Cox. Even some of their offensive linemen. Lane Johnson might be gone. Jason Kelsey. Brandon Brooks. All these guys might be gone because they won't be able to afford them. The Eagles are going to have a lot of trouble next year, and this is just proof that Howie Roseman has done a terrible job managing this team and will likely be fired at the end of this year. At number 28, the Dallas Cowboys. Cowboys got stomped on Tuesday Night Football against the Ravens. They couldn't get anything going on offense. They looked better than they have in the past, but a lot of this game came with issues of not being able to execute. Greg Zuerlein missed 3 kicks. That's 9 points left off the board and 3 field goals missed. So that right there would have put them at 26, and they lost. Then that would have been an 8-score game. And CeeDee Lamb dropped the absolute beauty of a throw by Andy Dalton in the end zone. Hail Mary at the end of the half. If CeeDee Lamb caught that, it would have been a beautiful play that would have let me win fantasy this week, but instead I lost and I take the 5th seed going into the playoffs. But no matter, the Cowboys have a ton of issues they're going to have to address going into the offseason, and that may lead to a lot of veteran turnover as well, similar to the Eagles. At number 27, the Denver Broncos. The Broncos, they got Drew Lock back this week, and it almost carried them to a victory, but they could not pull it off. A.J. Boye just got suspended for 5 games for performance-enhancing drugs, which puts him at not coming back until week 2 of next year. Just another issue to go along with the Broncos' woes this year. Vic Fangio is not the answer at coach. If I were managing that team, I would fire him at the end of this year. You know, they're going to have to, even then, I might even fire John Elway. John Elway has failed to put together a team for the Broncos. He's been so focused on quarterbacks over the years, he's forgot every other thing that this team has needed. They've rotated between Paxton Lynch, Trevor Siemian, Joe Flacco, Case Keenum, Brock Osweiler, and now Drew Lock is there on the latest line of issues that this team has had at the quarterback position. Drew Lock has a very high ceiling but a very low floor, and it's going to be very hard for this team to figure out their issues going forward. And quarterback, this was supposed to be the year they figured out if Drew Lock was the answer or not. And I don't think they got their answer this year, which just sucks because that's a second year gone on Drew Lock's contract. At 26, the Chicago Bears. The Bears, they started the season 5-1 and are now 5-7. That's just to put it how this season has gone for the Bears. I didn't move up the Bears very high when they were 5-1. I think I still had them around the 16th spot, and that was because I knew what this team was. I knew they weren't a real team. They weren't a real franchise. This team has dealt with so many issues, and this season has just put that into perspective. Their quarterback situation is absolutely terrible. Mitch Trubisky isn't the answer, neither is Nick Foles, which leaves them at a dead spot going into next year as well, as they do still have to pay Nick Foles, and they don't have the capital to be able to get rid of him. And Trubisky is going to walk and get $1 million contract to go play for someone like the Saints. So, it's just how the season goes. Pace will probably get fired in the offseason. They might fire Nagy as well. We'll see what happens there. But this team is definitely not as good as people expected it to be. And that part of that goes with a lack of offensive talent, as Allen Robinson is their only talented player, and he's going to leave in the offseason. So they're going to be left at a complete rebuild on the offensive side of the ball, which might as well just lead you to rebuild the defensive side, which will put you into a full rebuild. Congratulations, Bears. At 25, the Los Angeles Chargers, they got absolutely destroyed by the Patriots on Sunday, 45-0. Their special teams play was horrendous. They had no answers for stopping the Patriots on any side of the ball. Cam Newton threw for under 100 yards again. I'll get more into how I feel about that in a bit. But they didn't have to throw because the Chargers beat themselves. 14 points on special teams for the Patriots as they blocked a kick and returned it. And Gunnar Olszewski returned a punt return for a touchdown. Anthony Lynn's job is in jeopardy, will most likely get fired at the end of this year, so that they don't ruin the development of future star Justin Herbert, who looks great, but is dealing with the issues of everyone around him, and that's not a good way to help your quarterback prosper. At 24, the Detroit Lions, they got the win against the Bears, 30-27. This team is going to have a really interesting outlook going forward. They have, they're not a young team, and they're not playing too well this year, so they're going to have a lot of veteran turnover at the end of this year. I feel like a lot of veteran guys are going to be gone, and that might include Matthew Stafford. They might try to rebuild this team. Starting with the defense, there's talk that Robert Saleh is going to be the guy who's sought out for the head coaching job, and I think that's a great fit. Get an actual defensive-minded coach in there, as Matt Patricia clearly cannot do that. Matt Patricia couldn't lead a locker room. Robert Saleh can, and he's proven to be able to do that with the 49ers. But it's a good win for the Lions to get out of their slump that they've had, and they'll hope to build on that going forward towards the end of the season. At 23, the Carolina Panthers. The Panthers have had an up and down season, but their issues just continue as, this team, they've had McCaffrey out for most of this year. They had a bye this week, so at least they get to bring him back, but they've been very inconsistent. This defense can either be really good or really bad. It is young, and you hope that it can continue to grow going forward. We'll see how that goes. I think Matt Rule is a good coach for them, and I think within a year or two we could actually see this team starting to compete in the playoffs and possibly even go for a Super Bowl, depending on who's leading this team at the quarterback spot, because I don't think Teddy Bridgewater can bring them there. At 22, the Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons are just, the Falcons, they really do try to be a successful franchise, but they just can't do it, Normally, this is around the time where they start to have a bunch of wins at the end of the season. They just got beat this week, They're going to have to bring in a whole new coaching staff. I don't think the guy who they have at interim, I forget his name, I don't think he's going to take the job. Falcons are going to be in total rebuild mode, which is a very hard issue to do when you have Matt Ryan and Julio Jones on guaranteed contracts that you can't move. So, like the Bears, congratulations, Falcons. Hope we never see you again in the Super Bowl, coming from a Patriots fan. You've never fully recovered from 28-3. Sorry. At 21, the Washington football team. Now we start to get into teams that are actually not complete jokes. The Washington football team was a highly underrated team this year. I had hopes for them this year, and I was just waiting for them to show it. And they knock off the last undefeated team, the Pittsburgh Steelers, to leave it. So no team is going undefeated this year, and Washington just beat them for it. Washington played well without their best running back, Antonio Gibson, for most of the game. So you hope that he will be able to help them going forward. Washington's defense carried. There was also a big issue with the Steelers dropping the football. Mike Tomlin came out and said, if you can't catch the ball, we have guys who can replace you. That's not something you want to hear from a team that's trying to compete for the first seed in the playoffs. You hope they can fix those issues and grow going forward. But good win by Washington. And the team who's competing with Washington for the title of NFC East champion, the New York Giants, they knock off the Seattle Seahawks. The Giants quietly built a good roster, and Joe Judge is doing a great job coaching for them. There was a lot of complaints about how Joe Judge was managing the team, and it was really more the fact that the Giants haven't had a disciplined coach since forever. Maybe even Bill Parcells at that. Joe Judge is bringing the Patriots minded where, you can have fun when you start winning games, and now the Giants are starting to have fun. They have a lot of talented players on that roster. As long as they can get Daniel Jones to grow, this team is going to, as much of a Patriots superfan I am and a Giants hater, this team might actually start to be good if they can keep the necessary pieces around, build around Daniel Jones, and keep this team continuing to grow and don't take any steps backwards. At 19, the Minnesota Vikings. Vikings pulled through with an overtime win against the Jaguars. They move forward towards their wild card push. I believe they actually sit in a wild card spot right now if the season were to end today. So Vikings, they've pushed back from their 1-6 start. They're hoping to continue to move up. I don't think the Vikings are a legitimate team. If you almost get knocked off by the Jaguars, and they've had a lot of close games, I don't think they're a legit contender. And I think teams like the Rams and Cardinals are better fit for wildcard spots than the Vikings are. But it's good to see that Kirk Cousins still has talent left in him, so that the Vikings don't have to worry about going to get a quarterback in this offseason. At 18, the Houston Texans, they got knocked off by the Colts. Texans were riding a hot streak, and it ended this game. They had a lot of miscues that led to their demise. They couldn't stop the Colts' offense, and they fell short on their own side offensively. Last chance to win the game. Watson muffs the snap, gets recovered by the Colts, and they lose the game. So, Texans, your season's pretty much over, but, it's a win for them. They got rid of Bill O'Brien. I think that's the only thing Texans fans really care about this year. At 17, the LA Rams. I'm not ready to put the Rams all up high just yet. NFL.com had the Rams at number 6. I was like, no way. This Rams team is too inconsistent. They have a pretty high ceiling where they can beat teams like the Cardinals pretty good. They can beat the Bucs, but then they have super low floors. And I think that they're more likely to hit those floors, not because of how they're coached, but because of the way the talent plays. Generally, when you have a team filled with a lot of talent, they don't play with cohesion, and this offense is starting to get really shaky with how they play. They have a ton of pieces, and they're not figuring out how to manage them on the field. Cooper Kupp slowly is getting less and less looks. Robert Woods is becoming the wide receiver 1 there this year. They've got 3 running backs that they can't decide who to get it to, and they're lucky if one is even running pretty good that day. So the Rams got to figure out their issues going into the end of the season here, or they might lose out on a wildcard spot to a team like the Vikings. At 16, the San Francisco 49ers, a team that got beat up this past game on Monday Night Football by the Bills. The 49ers, they're stuck in a situation where they have to play in Arizona for pretty much the rest of their home games. They're very thankful that the Cardinals were able to do that, but it's no matter. The 49ers, their season, it was pretty much over when they were dealing with all those injuries, but they keep fighting. I doubt they're going to be able to come back for a playoff spot, but the fact that they were able to keep fighting, keep going, they didn't give up. It's a good sign of the mentality of the team there, and it's a good look on the coaching staff for bringing in that mindset to the team. It's a good thing for them going forward, and I think Kyle Shanahan deserves a good nod for that. At 15, the Miami Dolphins. They had an okay victory against the Bengals. Not good, not great. They got the win. Tua, he got the win. Tua's won all the games that he started from start to finish. The one game where they lost, they pulled him out early. We'll see how Tua's development continues. He's shown flashes that he can be really good, but I don't think he's up to par with Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert standards yet. Those guys have been able to carry their teams. Tua has not been able to. They've had a lot of help on the defensive side of the ball and special teams with guys like Van Noy, Xavier Howard, Andrew Van Ginkel. Those guys have played really well for the Dolphins defensively, and I think they have to give a lot of thanks to Brian Flores for that, as he's built a good culture and roster with this team. At 14, my New England Patriots are at 14 for curb stomping the LA Chargers. I was like, did they play the Rams? No, they play the Rams tomorrow, which is when we'll get a Boston Tea Party podcast episode. Be sure to look forward to that. But anyways, Patriots, they played great against the Chargers. I would have liked to see more out of Cam. I know I'm being very picky, but Cam hasn't played the greatest this year. If the Patriots don't make the playoffs, I think they should go with a lot more pass heavy towards the end of the season here because I don't think Cam Newton is the future. I would like to be wrong. I want to think Cam Newton can be a top 10 passer, but he hasn't shown it yet this season. He hasn't shown that he can do that against top defenses or even average defenses at that this season. So I want to see growth there, but we haven't seen it. We'll see what the Patriots do with their quarterback situation in the offseason. But the Patriots, they're still fighting for a playoff spot right now, and they might be able to sneak in with a wild card spot if they can win out the rest of this year, and they have a chance to with a fairly easy schedule with the Rams, Bills, Dolphins, Jets. So those are 4 winnable games, and we'll see what they can do with that going forward. At 13, the Arizona Cardinals. Cardinals get blown out by the Rams. The Cardinals, like the Rams, are very inconsistent this year. The Cardinals have won more games better, in my opinion. Cardinals, I think they are a good team. They're just dealing with the inconsistencies of being a first-year good team. You know, this happens with a lot of teams when it's their first year of having actual talent, playing well. They don't necessarily play the greatest that whole year. Look at the Browns last year. They went 7-8-1, I think was their record they finished with. They had a ton of talent, but they couldn't do well with it in their first year together. Bringing a new coach, and he helped bring the cohesion together. Now the Browns play like a very good team. We'll get more onto that with the Browns, but Cardinals, they don't even have to get rid of their coach to do that. Cliff Kingsbury has done a great job with them. You definitely could ask for better, but considering what other teams are doing with right now, the Cardinals shouldn't get picky. They're in a good spot. They should make the playoffs, and if they don't, then I would start to have questions. But as long as the Cardinals don't fall off a cliff, they should be able to make the playoffs here at the end of the season. At 12, the Colts. The Colts just keep hanging around in a playoff spot. I don't think they're worthy of it with their play, but they just keep continuing to battle. Phillip Rivers, you know, he's always been that guy who's been on the outskirts of the playoffs, and every time they get in, they get absolutely destroyed. So, Phillip Rivers hoping he could get one last shot in the playoffs. We'll see if they can get to that point. I think the Colts have a tough road going forward. They could either win out or lose out. Could go either way. We'll see how it goes for them. But the Colts, they're slowly starting to get better play cohesively. You know, Jordan Taylor didn't play too bad this week. The receivers are starting to pick their game up. And the defense, who's played pretty good all year, is still playing at a good level that can bring them to the playoffs. So we'll see what the Colts can do with that going forward. The division is still up for grabs with the Titans, and we'll see if they can go snatch it from them, and if not, possibly a wild card spot. At number 11, speaking of the Titans got absolutely destroyed by the Browns. The score doesn't tell the whole story. Browns were up 38-7 at halftime. They let off the gas. Titans come back closer, but it was still a blowout, no less. The Browns handled Derrick Henry easily. They stuffed them, and that forced the Titans to have to go to a passing game, and they couldn't get anything going there. This is the way you have to beat the Titans. If you can shut down Derrick Henry, you can shut down the entire Titans team. This is not a good way to build an offense around just one player. Any offense that builds around one player is bound to fail. So that's part of the issue here. Titans built their offense around Derrick Henry. You shut down Derrick Henry, that's an easy GG for whatever team is playing them. At 10, the Raiders. Boy, did those Raiders get lucky. They should not have won that game. They got lucky with the stupidity of the coaching staff of the Jets. That was a very poor decision by Greg Williams, and he lost his job for that reason. I wouldn't expect to see Greg Williams in another coaching spot for the rest of his life. You know, that's one way to go out. But the Raiders, that was a very close call. They need to start playing better. They haven't played great these last couple weeks. You know, and for a team that's just as much in the playoff hunt as any other AFC team, if they start to fall off a cliff here, like I was saying with other teams, they're going to lose their playoff spot very quickly with up-and-coming teams trying to snatch spots like the Patriots and the Ravens. So they got to continue with their play or else they'll lose a spot, and that would not be a good look for John Gruden. At 9, the Baltimore Ravens. They had a very good win last night on Tuesday Night Football against the Cowboys. They played with poise, and they just stunned on all sides of the ball. The defense played great. Lamar Jackson looked like his usual self, and he didn't look like the one who'd been playing for the last month against other teams. I do believe the curse is still going. I don't know if the Ravens make the playoffs. If they do, I believe something might happen. The curse is real, and that might have just been it right there. I mean, last year, Mahomes got cursed. He got injured, was out for a couple games, goes and wins the Super Bowl. So the curse, it comes in many forms, so we'll see how it works with Lamar Jackson and the Ravens. But the Ravens got the win. They're sitting at 7-5, just outside the playoffs. We'll see if they can get a win streak going so they can go take a playoff spot. At number 8, the Seattle Seahawks. They lost to the Giants. That's all I have to say. You just lost to a team that's gonna win, that might win the division with a losing record. That is a joke for the Seahawks. That's embarrassment. This team is highly overrated this year. This team, their defense is atrocious, and all they have to do is shut down Russell Wilson, and this team can't do anything. The run game isn't there. They only have 2 receiving threats. Shut them down, and you have an easy win. The defense can't help them at all, and if the defense shows any signs of not being tired, not being able to keep up, every offense has just taken straight advantage of it. That defense is horrible, and we're seeing what it can lead to. This could have been a matchup in the playoffs. If the Seahawks end up with the 4 seed, they'll play whoever comes up in the NFC. If the Seahawks lose the division title, but end up in the 5 seed, they would play the winner of the NFC East. And the fact that they lost to the Giants and that division has been beating each other up all season, that is not a good look for the Seahawks going forward in these playoffs. At 7, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Buccaneers coming off of a bye. Hopefully they got some work done with that offense. For them, they hope so. They did not look very good the last couple times they've played. They lacked chemistry. Guys were all over the place. They weren't on the same page, and it led to many offensive miscues and mess-ups. So they're hoping they fix those issues. The defense was starting to get a little inconsistent there. They weren't as dominant as they were towards the start of the season. So they're hoping they fixed those issues too. Buccaneers will most likely make the playoffs, but we'll see how far Brady and company can go in those playoffs. I don't think it's going to be very far. I'd be surprised if they honestly made it to the conference championship. At number 6, the Cleveland Browns. The Cleveland Browns are legit. I've been saying it all year, and everyone was going with, the Browns have an easy schedule. Yes, they've had an easy schedule. They are bullies of the week. But then they just proved that they can beat high-powered team. They beat the Titans. They showed that they can beat a playoff team. They showed they can beat a contender. Let's see what the Browns can do against the Steelers to see if they can be a legitimate contender themselves. If they can, the Browns, it's a good outlook for them going into the playoffs, seeing that they can if they can beat the Steelers and the Ravens. Boy, I would be scared of the Browns going into these playoffs. They are hot, they are hungry, and they are looking for blood. Cracking into the top 5, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Their undefeated season is over. Mike Tomlin was not very happy in his after-game press conference. They got knocked off by Washington. The undefeated season is done. It's over. Washington, that's not the greatest team to lose to. It would be a lot better if they lost to a team, say, the Ravens, or even the Browns that matter. They lost to the Washington football team. Similar to the Seahawks situation with the Giants, that is not a team that you want to lose to. Granted, the Washington's very good defensively. That offense isn't the greatest, though, and they were without one of their good weapons in Antonio Gibson for most of the game, and they still couldn't win. Most of their issues did happen on the offensive side of the ball. They got lots of pressure, and even when Roethlisberger could get the ball off, the receivers couldn't hang on to the ball. Those are issues that don't look good when you're looking at a playoff outlook. and those issues need to be handled by the Steelers before they can even think about putting a ring on their fingers. At number 4, the Buffalo Bills. The Bills came off of a dominant win on Monday Night Football against the San Francisco 49ers. The Bills are a legit contender. I think they're more legit than the Steelers are. I haven't been very high on the Steelers all year. They just kind of kept winning games. The Bills, when put in the right position, are very dominant. They can go get good wins. Sean McDermott, Brian Dable have built a great team over there. They don't rely on one player. Josh Allen, when he makes good decisions, helps carry this offense, which is a top 10 offense at least when Josh Allen is on his mark, and he was this week. And if he can continue that with more consistency, not only will Josh Allen become a top 10 quarterback for the rest of his career, this Bills team will be very good for a very long time. Getting into the top 3, the Green Bay Packers at number 3. Moving up due to the Steelers and Seahawks dropping. Packers, they got the win that they needed, but it was against an Eagles team that ended up changing its quarterback halfway through. But no matter, they got the win. It was dominant. They're showing that they can continue to get wins down the road. We'll see what happens when the Packers make the playoffs, how teams with better offenses will compete against them. I'm a little worried if a team like the Rams, Cardinals, or Saints catch them off guard defensively. It could get very rough for the Packers very quickly in the playoffs, as the Packers have a tendency in the past decade to choke very often in big game situations in the playoffs. And you hope, the Packers hope at least, that doesn't continue to happen under a new regime with Matt LaFleur. At number 2, the New Orleans Saints. They are on a 3-game win streak after Drew Brees has been out. The Saints in the last 2 years are 8-0 without Drew Brees. That's a very good way to look at it. This team has it's a good, well-built team. There are very few issues. I think most of their issues come in the back end of their defense. Their secondary and linebackers do have issues every now and then, but they're starting to shore those up, and they're going to get wins. If the Saints keep going with this, the Saints have been my Super Bowl pick. They're going to go beat the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. Speaking of the Chiefs, they're sitting at number 1 as Mahomes is just Mahomes. They keep winning games. There's not really much else to talk about it. These are the 2 best teams in the league between the Saints and the Chiefs. No better. And I think these 2 teams are easily going to face each other in the Super Bowl. They have the least issues on any side of the ball between them. The Chiefs, they knocked off the Broncos like nothing. It was a little closer than they expected. The Broncos, they competed, but, they're the Chiefs. They kind of toyed with them a little bit. But, anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed, be sure to leave a like, subscribe if you aren't already. We hit 40 subscribers the other day. That was a nice little milestone to hit. Hope you all have a great rest of your week. And let's go root for the Patriots tomorrow on Thursday Night Football to beat the Los Angeles Rams and get the Patriots into those playoffs.